Bar weep grana weep nidibon! Welcome back to Transformers Autobook Club. I'm Gary, your host, and this is a weekly podcast and video series where we read, discuss, and deep dive into one issue or story from Marvel's Transformers comics. It's a solo episode again this week, but I have an insane guest lined up for issue 8, someone extremely interesting for issue 9, and then the wonderful Justin from the Iron Age of Comics will join us again for issues 10, 11, and 12, which are issues that are close to his heart. In between those are some UK stories that I think I'll do solo as well, so there's a mixture of things coming up in the pipeline. If you recall last week, I mentioned streaming building a Blokees Soundwave figure, and I made my attempt at that on Sunday, but it was an absolute disaster. So what I'm going to have to do is edit a bit of the video and then upload it later, and just be aware that I didn't get very far at all before I totally messed it up. Thanks to that, it's become part 1 in a series, with part 2 coming whenever I find a way to reverse the mistake I made. I put together 2 pieces that will just not come apart, and I put them together incorrectly, and that's kind of halted all progress for now. I was prepared for mistakes, but I wasn't prepared to make such a big one so quickly. I managed to stay level-headed about it, and yeah, I need to fix my mistake before I can do any more, and I really have no idea how I'm going to do that. I managed to find some tools that are specifically made to separate parts on Amazon, but this part is so small, I think that thing might not even fit into it. I'll upload it before this episode, so if you're curious to see that, for some reason, it'll be on the Transformers Autobook Club YouTube page. Speaking of other videos though, audio-only listeners, there's a video I made on my channel about going to find the recently released Transformers Gacha keychain toys here in Tokyo, which I managed to do. Doesn't really work well as audio, so if you fancy seeing that, head over to the YouTube page. And lastly, before we move on, speaking of the YouTube page, the handle still won't be changed for a few more weeks. But hopefully after that, it will be Transformers Autobook Club 2, just to make things simple. But for now, you have to manually search for it, or go to youtube.com/@ClarionComicsJP. Enough preamble though, let's get right into today's story, which is issue 7, Warrior School. The cover this time has something going on that isn't even in the comic, but that's not really unusual for comics. It just kind of gives an idea of the kind of thing that's going to happen, but it's a bit unusual to give a character a costume that they don't wear in the series. They've given Buster an orange boiler suit overall thing, which she's never worn and doesn't wear this time, so I'm curious why they decided to do that. Sparkplug would be so proud to see him in that though, I bet. Ratchet also has a gun here, which is weird too. He does try to fight Megatron this issue, but not with a gun. Megatron is in shadow, but you can see his mouth open like he's yelling something or other. But actually, in the speech bubbles on the cover, it's Ratchet that's talking. We're right in with the title and credits page on the first page this time. This issue is called Warrior School, and it was written by Bob Budiansky. We've got a new artist this time, William Johnson. He's on pencils. Kyle Baker is on inks. Rick Parker is on letters, and Nel Yomtov on colors again. An unbroken streak for Yomtov there. Jim Owsley is the editor, and Jim Shooter is editor-in-chief at Marvel. The story starts in an odd place here, but it's as good a chance as any to do our recap right at the start. Ratchet and Buster believe that all the Autobots are dead because Buster snuck inside the Ark and found them all hanging upside down from the ceiling. He also found Prime's severed head, which spoke to him and asked him to attach 2 cables, which were seemingly being used by Shockwave in order to extract the Matrix of Creation from Optimus's mind, to his own head. The Matrix is a computer program entrusted to a single Autobot, which allows for the creation of new Transformers. When Buster did as Optimus asked, he was, what looked like, violently shocked, and even caught on fire a little bit, and he passed out. While he was unconscious, Shockwave and some other Decepticons took control of an oil rig, which was all designed by a resident wonderkind, Josie Beller, who was badly injured, coincidentally also electrocuted, in the Decepticon attack. A reinvigorated Megatron challenged Shockwave's sudden takeover, but was absolutely wrecked by him and ended up bending the knee and swearing allegiance to him, along with the rest of the Decepticons. Last issue ended when Buster woke up, who knows how much later, and returned to Ratchet, who was still waiting outside the Ark. He told him what he'd found inside, but it seemed like he left out the part about the strange request from Prime. Possibly being so badly electrocuted caused him to forget about it, but I don't know. So he and Ratchet think that everyone is dead, and that they're the last survivors. The last defense for all humanity against Shockwave. So while this sequence coming up is really nice, I really like, it's very cute, it's very cozy, and it's very fun. It just feels totally out of place when you have the context of what has just happened. and when you kind of consider the current state of affairs. 4 friends are out camping in the woods when Buster and Ratchet, who's walking, approach through the trees. Ratchet accidentally bumps a tree, which falls and crushes their tent, which nobody was in, luckily. They fuss about the tent for a moment until they realize there's a massive robot standing there. Ratchet, with Buster on his shoulder, which is so cute to me, apologizes for his, quote, intrusion on their ceremonies. He continues to say that the terrain on Cybertron is flat, unlike Earth, which is often uneven and bumpy. That's such a neat little detail to throw in here. It makes complete sense that even walking on Earth is weird and new for him. He says, I lost my footing and accidentally nudged this brown pipe out of its mooring. Brown pipe made me crack a big smile. Like I said, I like this exchange a lot. It's giving a bit of time, aside from the war and the fighting, to address the Transformers being on a totally new planet with a completely different makeup and a new culture, and with the humans as well. Buster lets the campers know that Ratchet is friendly and nothing to be afraid of, though he understands how they must be feeling because he felt the same at first. He introduces himself and he offers to help put the tent back up, and while they're talking, their campfire catches Ratchet's eye, and he picks up one of the burning logs and asks, What is this? The thing that sticks out the most to me about William Johnson's art, as opposed to Frank Springer's, is how expressive Ratchet's face is in this issue. Johnson changes the size and shape of his eyes to let him have different kinds of facial expression. I really like it. He's looking at the log with these big, excited eyes, and it just adds to how charming this moment is. One of their new friends tells him it's fire, but Ratchet says, I know fire. What is this that produces the fire? The camper tells him that it's wood, and Ratchet repeats the word. So he's amused by it because there's nothing like it on Cybertron. He says it's a fascinating source of energy, and the kids explain that they're college students in the woods for a break from studying and to party. Ratchet says that he loved parties on Cybertron, and it's a shame that they had to leave this one so soon, but he needs to drive Buster home. Someone asks, Drive? And Buster says, Show him, Ratchet. Ratchet transforms into an ambulance and back again, explaining the story of the Autobots crashing to Earth and Teletran, who, for now, I feel like I should just stop referring to as Teletran at all. It's Auntie, and it hasn't ever been referred to as Teletran. So, the ship's computer / Auntie gave them their new forms. I'm not sure why we needed that, to be honest. They're probably laying it out for newcomers, but issue 7 seems a bit of a random time to do that. Perhaps there's some reason they were expecting an influx of new readers, but if so, I couldn't find out why that might have been. Once he's done explaining, he asks, Any questions? And they all say no, that answers them all. But they do ask Buster and Ratchet to stay a while and hang out. Buster asks what Ratchet thinks. Ratchet says it's a great idea. He wants to learn more about the humans and what they do for a good time. So yeah, like I said, I really like all of this. It's a cute little adventure for Buster and Ratchet, and a chance for Ratchet to learn more about Earth. Lots of opportunities for harmless comedy because of all the misunderstandings. This could be a really lovely issue, like just on its own. And I'd be happy to read a bunch of issues that were just like that. But with everything that's going on, stopping to attend a party now feels so weird. Let's not forget that Sparkplug is at home, recovering from a heart attack, and having asked Buster to go and say goodbye to the Autobots and to have nothing more to do with them. Go home! Well, they decide to stay anyway, and the kids explain that they were cooking hot dogs on their campfire. One shows Ratchet an example, and while he watches, he says, intriguing. Heat-tempered protein cylinders. Honestly, I hope we do get more of this kind of stuff. I have more of an idea of Ratchet's personality now in these few pages than I did the rest of the series so far, or all of the G1 show. Ratchet suggests an alternative and more efficient way to cook them with his laser scalpel. He says you can do it in seconds, and Buster starts to say that he doesn't think that the kids have any laser scalpels. But while he's speaking, he cries out. And of all the things to choose for him to scream out in pain, we get Yee! Have you ever yelled Yee in your entire life? Like, even worse than Aye. At least Aye has the ah part. Like, I feel like that's a natural sound to start a scream with, but Yee is just bizarre. Anyway, Yee he does, and he reels back, grasping at his head. And Ratchet, with his big eyes again, and his downturned mouth, yells, Buster! And the others ask, what's wrong? The narration here tells us that a searing pain explodes in Buster's skull, and he instantly remembers something that didn't happen? It says that Optimus blasted Buster with a beam of energy, which caused him a lot of pain. He didn't understand what was happening then, and he doesn't understand what's causing this to happen again now. Bob Budiansky wrote the last issue, as well as this one, So it's pretty weird to me that none of this is what actually happened last time. Optimus told Buster to attach wires to his temples, which shocked him, and he passed out. There was no beam of energy, so let's make our own story. Maybe after he attached the wires, this is what he saw happening in his mind, because he was connected to Optimus, though we didn't see that. Or maybe it happened off the page, and we just didn't see it. But as suddenly as the pain started, it stops. Ratchet asks again if Buster is okay, and for some reason Buster says he's fine and probably just exhausted. Why he's opted to keep what's happening from Ratchet, I don't know. I have a guess at what happened, but even if it's right, it's weird to keep that a secret from Ratchet. I think Prime implanted the Matrix into Buster's mind. There are a couple of reasons I can see for keeping that secret. Firstly, to keep the location of the Matrix completely secure, should Ratchet get captured or interrogated, and having put it there in the first place was so risky. Perhaps Prime was thinking Ratchet might ask for it to be put inside his mind from Buster's. But if anything went wrong with that, it would be lost forever. As usual, I'm reading way far into things, but that kind of thing is the only way keeping all this a secret makes sense. The students offer to take Buster home instead of Ratchet, and Buster thinks that that's a good idea because Ratchet has other things to worry about right now anyway. As they leave, Ratchet considers how right Buster is. He can't run from the situation, though he's a doctor and not a warrior. He's the only Autobot left, and it's up to him to stop the Decepticons. Next, we're headed to Blackrock Aerospace Plant No. 1, where the most technologically advanced aircraft in the United States are built. One worker named Gabe notices a tape deck just laying in the parking lot, and the other, Ferdy, tells him to pick it up and go inside with him because he wants to clock in on time. He jokingly says that he always makes sure to be on time because now that Mr. Blackrock has installed a bunch of artillery around the plant, he's wondering if he'll start using it on the workers instead of docking their pay. They're keeping up with giving names to even minor one-time characters. I'm still kind of waiting and hoping for an update on Jason Boyd, Mitchell, and Doris from issue 2. Gabe tells Ferdy to stop messing around. The guns were installed to keep the workers and the plant safe after Blackrock's oil rig was attacked and taken over, which happened last issue. He says that any one of these cannons could sink a small country, so I guess they're pretty hefty. He starts getting ready to build some jets, and Gabe puts his new toy in a locker. He says he thinks it'll be safe in there until lunch, and Ferdy says, "Safety, safety, you're too nervous, amigo." Oh, foreshadowing. The narration box says that perhaps not nervous enough, and the lockers start to shake as Soundwave transforms inside and bursts out. He has a bit of a speech here, which I'm going to read. "Ha! As ever, these fleshlings are no match for the cunning of Soundwave. By carrying me in here in my cassette deck mode, they've evaded all of this facility's armaments for me." So one, yeah, thanks Soundwave, but we literally just watched that happen. But thanks for the update, I guess. And two, this sounds really different from the cartoon Soundwave. In the show, he uses that awesome kind of talk box voice, and because of that, what he can say is a bit limited, and it has to be paced quite slowly so we can make out what he's saying. Like, I can't imagine this speech in that voice. The problem of needing to make it clear enough to hear doesn't exist in the comics though, because it's all text. So it makes sense that he speaks more here, but it's making it feel like he has a completely different personality in the comic. So I'm curious to see him more often and find out what he's like in the comics compared to the show. He really comes off here like a mix of Starscream and Megatron. Disdainful of humans, and a bit self-congratulatory. Next, he ejects Laserbeak from his chest, which is the first time he's used any of his cassettes from his body in the comics so far, if I'm not mistaken. Every other time we've seen them have been separate from him, though they have had tape forms. There's like a really cool burst of light effect on this page too, in a circle emanating from Laserbeak as it's coming out of Soundwave and flying away. Elsewhere in the building, 3 security workers discuss hearing the sound of tearing metal, with sensors indicating it came from the locker area. This place is seriously highly surveilled. They picked up on this right away, and they were about to send an investigation unit to the area when one of them yells, "Forget the basement, investigate this!" And he's pointing out of the window of the room that they're in. He's got this very purple suit on with a yellow shirt underneath it, and I gotta say, I'm not mad at it. Soundwave has made his way onto the main factory floor, and he's blasting his shoulder gun thingy, and the big cannon on his arm there too. And he says that the plant is now property of the Decepticons, and it's useless to resist him. The workers all decide to make a run for it, and Soundwave yells, "There's no defying my word, fleshlings!" And he turns as if he's about to shoot at them all. But the security force from the plant arrive and shoot him in the back first before he has time to kill the fleeing mechanics. Soundwave turns to face them and asks if their audio sensors are failing them, or if they need a more persuasive argument. And Laserbeak does a fly past and fires at them with lasers. Interestingly, none of the guards are shown getting shot. The lasers were just aimed at their rifles. Soundwave, who's getting some cool dialogue now, I'm kind of into this vibe for him, says that the humans will recognize their new masters or die in the learning. And as he does, he smashes the walkway that they're standing on, causing all of them to fall what looks like maybe at least 12 feet. The panel cuts away so we can decide for ourselves if anyone got hurt or not. The two guys we saw earlier are running away through the carnage, and the security monitoring people are panicking because all the weapons that are installed in the plant were external. They have no way to fire at something that's already inside. I really like this next panel of Soundwave. He's looking back over his shoulder and he's pointing at the control room where he can sense the radio broadcaster coming from. He's pointing at it and he's telling Laserbeak to destroy whatever's inside, and there's a green burst of light coming from behind his head. I think it's to signify that he's noticed something up there. But the whole pose with that green light look awesome. And Laserbeak's there in the foreground with its jets firing, heading where Soundwave is pointing. This made me laugh a little bit. The narration boxes tell us that Laserbeak completely destroys the radio transmitters. And the next panel tells us that the operators are barely singed. So they're being very careful and very selective about what they show when it comes to violence against humans. They're making sure to make it clear that no humans are ever harmed. Now that's kind of funny when you consider the heinous shit they did to all the Autobots in issue 5. I can see the reasoning, right? They're robots. Even though the narration has hinted in the past that they can feel pain. And we even saw oil used to look like blood splatters. So long as a human being isn't getting hurt, you can show what you like happening to robots, I guess, including a severed head. The scene cuts to the oil rig next. The Decepticons have taken the oil rig, a power source, and now a facility that builds aircraft. And Shockwave is still attempting to extract the matrix of creation from Prime's mind. So he's setting himself up to use the matrix to build an army and have them all charged and at full strength. The Autobots are still hanging from the ceiling in the Ark, and only Ratchet is left. As the war goes, this is looking dire. On the Decepticons' oil rig, Shockwave praises Soundwave's successful operation, and says that having the plant will advance the Decepticon cause significantly. Soundwave says that he was only able to take the plant at all because Shockwave found files containing information about it on the rig he took. So that explains why both places they've hit belong to Great Big Black Rock. Usually people get given names in this comic, but GB has always been GB so far. And a while back, when I started writing notes in which GB Black Rock appeared, I was, in my head, made it so that it sounded for Great Big Black Rock. Anyway, Soundwave says, all glory belongs to you. Soundwave seems like he's completely loyal to who's ever in charge. Mind you, he gave allegiance to Shockwave very easily. But given how powerful he is, and at least it seems so far, how superior he is to Megatron, in virtually every way, that's understandable. In Blackrock's office, a TV is playing the news report that Soundwave himself is helping broadcast as a warning to the world of the coming Decepticon conquest. And Blackrock is bent over the desk, slamming his fist on it and yelling, "They did it to me again!" He says that it's the second time they've messed with him, and this time they let the world see it. But he says that he isn't beaten yet. And then he yells out, "Hear that, rust buckets? GB Blackrock isn't beaten yet!" And that speech bubble is coming out from the huge tower that he's in. Like in a movie where someone shouts so loud that the whole city can hear it and like the birds fly off and it echoes around and stuff. So Great Big Blackrock is clearly planning to make some retaliatory moves on the Decepticons. Next, we're at a hospital named Blackrock Chronic Care Institute, so another of Blackrock's multiple ventures. And outside, there's a limo with a chauffeur clearly waiting because he's relaxing on the hood of the car and he's reading a paper. Inside the hospital is poor Josie Beller, who was injured in Shockwave's raid on Blackrock's oil rig. The narration tells us that she was paralyzed in the incident, across her entire body except her right arm, which has partial movement in it. It says that she's still able to continue her research at the same pace as before, even from her hospital bed. In fact, she might be working harder than ever. I don't know exactly what you could research on a pre-internet bedside computer in the 80s, but she's going for it. Then we see whose car and driver is waiting outside. Of course, it's Great Big Blackrock, who arrives with some flowers and says that Josie's looking better. He kind of tastelessly jokes that he's glad to see that she's still working and earning her paycheck. I don't know. Even as a joke, that feels super tone-deaf. He does add in a, "Don't overstrain yourself," afterwards though. Maybe he was trying to set a friendly tone, but yeesh. While he's there, some staff wheel in some kind of cylindrical machine thing, and GB tells Josie that he's got the printed circuit design equipment that she requested. He says that the micro-etcher she asked for will arrive tomorrow, and that it's not possible to ask old GB for too much, by which I think he means that she can ask for whatever she wants, which she better be able to. You're lucky if she doesn't sue you. She got so badly injured. When the staff leave the two alone, GB's mood darkens a bit. He says that the doctors say Josie has extensive damage to her nervous system, and that the doctors don't know if she'll ever fully recover. He does the classic move to show someone is stressed, and he lifts his glasses, rubs his face, and he tells her that the same robots that attacked the oil rig have also taken over his assembly plant. And he drops in that Josie also designed that for him. So she's really his golden goose. I hope she's getting a hefty cut of the profit from all these things. He tells her that he has to go now, but that the robots will be stopped. And as he leaves the room, Josie thinks to herself, yes, the robots will be stopped. I promise. And she starts typing away at the keypad she has there by the bed. So she's clearly planning something with all that equipment she's asking for, and now this ominous promise. Back at the Ark now, which Ratchet has returned to. So it really does appear that he only left for a moment to take Buster home. And this time he goes right inside. Maybe because he'd been waiting outside for such a long time before. He knows that most of the Decepticons left and didn't seem to come back a while ago. He turns a corner and he has that great expressive face again. His eyes are big and his mouth is open as he comes upon the hall of dangling destroyed Autobots. And though his reaction is handled just perfectly, I think. Remember, Buster saw this and freaked out, and he told Ratchet that they were all dead. Ratchet's surprise is more measured, and right away he's already thinking about how, even with his expertise, he wouldn't know where to begin repairing them all without getting noticed. So he's way less freaked out because he knows they're not dead, they're just damaged. All of which is nothing that can't eventually be fixed. I like that difference in their reactions when they saw this. Like Buster, Ratchet notices that Prime isn't among the strung-up Autobots, and guesses that Prime must have freed himself because nobody can hold the invincible Optimus. But even Ratchet is stricken to continue down the hall and discover the disembodied head of Optimus Prime. He reels backwards and he throws his head back and yells out, "No! It's all true! Everything Buster told me! Optimus is defeated!" Prime's head was suspended on beams above some kind of strange bowl shape in the floor last time, but it seems like it's been moved now. It's higher up, and it has more of these kind of beams or struts coming out of it. It looks kind of like a horrible spider with Prime's head at the center. It's another really striking and horrible image. Only 3 big panels on this page too. I'm still really appreciating how much space is being given to the art. And while we're on the art, the colouring is so smooth. I've been reading so many UK stories lately that it really does stand out as different how flat and smooth all the colours are in the US issues. The UK ones have kind of this gritty, texture to them that makes it look a little bit different. But yeah, I really like these flat colours. I'm always a big fan of flat colouring. Usually how much page space is given to the art is down to the writer, I think, who devises the number of panels on a page while they're writing. So Budiansky has given us lots of nice pages with this. But if you notice, the artist has changed from Alan Kupperberg to William Johnson. But we're still going with the quite similar page layouts. Actually, that's obviously why Prime's head looks much different now. Johnson had a much cooler idea about how to present that, so it's been changed up in this issue. I especially like the Hanging Autobots panel. Nel Yontov has been the colorist since the beginning, and uses pastel colors for the backgrounds, so sometimes Transformers get colored in just one color, if the focus isn't really on them. He colored all the Transformers that are hanging up in different pastels, and the Ratchet is in red, while he's wandering through that corridor. I think that worked really nicely. Ratchet puts his head in his hands and he says that he knew Buster was right, but he couldn't believe it until he saw it for himself. He really starts to despair that all is lost now. When Prime starts to speak to him, he tells him to come forward. I really like this little exchange between them here. Ratchet says, "Great Optimus, you function!" And Optimus says, "Put aside your grief, Ratchet. Now is the time for valor." And Ratchet replies that he's no warrior, and that the time for valor has passed. Prime has maybe the biggest and most crammed speech bubble that's been in the entire series so far, so I'm going to read it aloud. He says, "Ratchet, the Decepticons allow my continued existence because they plan to use my creation matrix, the legendary Autobot program that creates new Transformer life, for their own dark purposes. Yet, though I seemingly hang here helpless, I have already taken steps to thwart those plans. For untold ages, we Autobots have increasingly combated the Decepticon evil. Today it is your turn, Ratchet. Save us from the Decepticons. Defeat Megatron." So, Prime confirms that he has the Matrix, and that he's done something to stop the Decepticons getting it from him. For my money, I still think he's hidden it in Buster's brain. Ratchet says that his weapons are nothing compared to Megatron's. How could he possibly stop him? He's a doctor, not a fighter. Prime says that just as he trained on Cybertron to be a doctor, so now must he train on Earth to be a warrior. And he says that before he can train to act like a warrior, that he must first learn to think like a warrior. This panel is small, but it's really cool. We got another shot of that horrible spider Prime in the background. We don't get a full-page shot of that, which is too bad. It's a really... I don't like it, but it's an affecting image. And in the foreground, Ratchet's leaning one hand on the table and looking down toward it, but it's the other hand, closest to the camera, that's clenched, palm upwards, like Prime's words are firing up and it's making him ready to take on the challenge Optimus has set for him. It's such a cool pose. This is easily the coolest I've seen Ratchet ever look. There's a lot of text on this page, but it's kind of an important scene. But they've really stuffed it all into one page. Buster, who by his own admission in the first issue, knows nothing about cars, is talking to O and Jesse about Sparkplug. He's recovering well from his heart attack, and will be home in a few days, but Buster says it's up to him to run things at the garage, until he gets back. It's a really nice gesture, but besides cleaning up stuff and doing admin, don't touch anything if you don't know what you're doing. O says that he's worrying too much, and Jesse says that they should take a look and see what the three of them can do to help. Buster says that not even Lee Iacocca could help fix up the cars in the lot. And I had to look that up. Lee Iacocca was the CEO of the automobile manufacturer Chrysler in the 80s. Buster continues that his dad always said he couldn't tell a wrench from a screwdriver. So how can he repair these cars? In issue 1, Sparkplug was a bit harsh on Buster, who was studying to earn a scholarship. Sparky wanted him to learn some hands-on, practical skills, and came across pretty brusque, telling Buster to get his head out of books and to do something with his hands. We didn't have this context at the time, and this kind of changes things a bit in my opinion. There is a happy medium here. Buster doesn't need to know how to fix a car, but yeah, basic awareness of tools is a pretty essential skill to have, I'd say. Mind you, that one's on Sparkplug. How on earth are you a mechanic, but you've never introduced your kid to a spanner? As usual, I overthought this and checked the dates of the Korean War, because I wondered if maybe coming back from that was the reason that Sparkplug maybe missed Buster's childhood. But it ended in 1953, and Buster is around 18 in 1984, so those dates don't line up for that to be the case. Hey, I'm nothing if not thorough. O jokes that Buster should fix the soda machine first, because he just got 50 cents change for a 60-cent soda. But Jesse scolds him and tells him to be serious. Buster is the smartest kid at school, and he should have no trouble figuring out how to do something like fixing cars. I know she means well, but he literally just told her how completely clueless about this he is. So that kind of comes off all wrong. Buster feels the same as I do, I think, because he's getting really frustrated. He shoves his finger in O's face, and he yells that it took his dad 30 years to become as good a mechanic as he is, and he worked hard. If they think that anybody can simply just pick it up in an afternoon, then they're more useless to have around the garage than he is. And he tells them to just leave him alone, which is really out of character for him. But I like that, I think. I think having a character's behavior become unusual shows their state of mind. Nobody acts the same way 100% of the time in real life, and I think often in comic fandom, if a character makes a choice that's slightly unusual due to their circumstances, fans still don't like it. Like, Peter Parker is the best example I can think of, who has made some choices recently in comics that fans really dislike because it seemed like something that he wouldn't choose to do. But that kind of just furthered the story. He was in an extreme circumstance. It made sense to me for him to make a strange decision. Jessie says to O that she thinks Buster is serious and that they should probably go. And O agrees. Minor detail, but I really like Jessie's outfit. She's got this blue beret on that matches her Heeley boots and lavender knit sweater and then these brighter pinky purple pants. Most of the clothes are kind of plain t-shirt or jeans in this series, but I like it when the 80s fashion makes an appearance. Yeah, I know. I had two sisters growing up, and I'm unashamedly a Gem girl boy. Ugh, I would love a Gem Transformers crossover. Even just a one-shot. Absolutely no need for that to ever happen, but I'd read the crap out of that. Total tangent and sidebar, but Gem recently had its 40th anniversary, and Hasbro put up a re-recorded mini-album on YouTube and music streaming services. It's so fucking good! If you've never seen Gem, it's such a weird premise, and it's so very, very 80s. I'm not sure it holds up in general, but every episode had a mini song and music video. They're so great! Anyway, after they leave, the pain in Buster's head comes back, and it's so bad his eyes are watering, and he drops to his knees on the floor and he grasps at his head, and there's a cool light effect emitting from his head and colourful circles. It looks really nice. The screwdriver and wrench and what looks like a small TV all float in the air at the same time. And when the pain stops and Buster can focus again, they all fall back to the floor, causing him to realize they've been suspended in the air. Back on the Ark, Ratchet's making his way through the halls and thinks to himself that he's not even really sure what he's doing or where he's going. He wonders that maybe he's looking for Megatron, who he says is the nastiest Decepticon of the bunch. Oh, Ratchet, love. No, he isn't. Luckily for him, Shockwave is elsewhere right now, or he'd learn real quick who the nastiest Decepticon is. He's interrupted in his thoughts, though, as a hand grabs him on the shoulder. And not only that, it starts to crush it. The metal starts to crumple, and light flashes from Ratchet's eyes, and there's a crunch sound effect. And then smoke starts coming from poor Ratchet's shoulder. This turns out to be another case of Megatron pulling a power move. I love that streak in him. He could easily have just shot or killed Ratchet from behind, but he didn't. Again, Megatron forgoes being lethal to be intimidating instead. He taunts and threatens Ratchet, who's on his knees on the floor now, and he says that he'll make an impressive addition to his collection of scrapped Autobots. Which just adds to the intimidation. Ratchet doesn't know that Shockwave was the one who downed everyone before hanging them up all over the place. And now Ratchet's newfound bravery kicks in. He responds to Megatron's taunts with some smack talk of his own, at the same time thinking to himself that he can't believe he's hearing himself do that. Which is so relatable to me. I don't think I've ever just talked shit to somebody, much less somebody I was intimidated by. And as intimidated by as poor Ratchet must be feeling by Megatron right now. Ratchet throws a jab right at Megatron, but he does it from his knees on the floor, so it looks like he's going for a nut shot. From the way Megatron is standing in the next shot, and the way Ratchet is falling, I think Megatron backhanded him across the face, which, fuck yeah, that fits him so well. He has some cold lines here, too. He says, "You dare strike your superior, Autobot. For such effrontery, I shall tear out each wire one by one from your body." The ugh from Ratchet has a little bit of graffiti-style flair, too. I like that. Megatron continues to threaten Ratchet and advances on him again. And Ratchet tells him to stay back or that he'll shoot if he has to. And he produces these really crappy-looking tiny orange things. One looks like a little rocket, and the other looks like a lady's personal massager. The rocket turns out to fire some kind of cryogenic liquid, and the vibrator is a heat laser of some kind. Better label that thing very clearly, or someone's lips are going to get firmly sealed. Oh dear. Even on the solo episodes, I make myself laugh. Ratchet thinks to himself that these things are for repairs, not for fighting. And Megatron, who, don't forget, let the military open fire on him for 15 straight minutes a few issues ago, throws back his head and laughs in his face. Ratchet is shocked that they had no effect whatsoever, and Megatron says that Ratchet is barely worth the time it would take to destroy him. He continues that things have been quiet on the Ark lately, and that killing him would be at least some small amusement, and he lifts Ratchet with one hand, and his fist is pulled back there too, like he's about to wreck him with a punch. But Ratchet is saved when Megatron is distracted by an incoming transmission from Shockwave. Shockwave tells Megatron to stop what he's doing, and immediately Reddy primes head for transport. Megatron answers, "Yes, Commander." But once the transmission is over, he seemingly throws Ratchet against the monitor in a rage, which smashes it, and lands Ratchet on the floor, piecing together that Shockwave must now be leading the Decepticons. He astutely realizes that if Megatron has no physical weaknesses he can exploit, that this might be the chink in the armor that he needs. Ratchet says that he can help Megatron defeat Shockwave, and Megatron says that joking around isn't going to save Ratchet from his doom. But Ratchet says that he's serious, and he knows how Shockwave was beaten in the past, by the Dinobots. While Ratchet is saying this, he's thinking that he's not really sure that that's true, but he needs Megatron to believe it. Megatron gives us a flashback to fill in some gaps about the Ark's mission to clear the asteroid belt in the first issue. Remember, the Decepticons followed the Autobots, planning to hang back and wait for the Autobots to clear the asteroids and then to ambush them once the mission was complete, and they were all weak and tired. The plan was actually masterminded by Shockwave, who was the Decepticons' military operations officer. Back then, Megatron sensed that Shockwave wanted to lead the Decepticons, and knowing that, Megatron made moves to ensure that he wasn't able to take control from him. Shockwave stayed behind on the Decepticon ship as backup, while the others attacked the Ark. And Megatron says that his decision to do that is what confirmed in his mind that Shockwave had ulterior motives, and that made him decide to kill him as soon as they were done on the Ark. Of course, he wasn't able to do that, thanks to Prime's unexpected decision, to set the Ark on a collision course with Earth, after which Shockwave transformed into gun mode, which allows him to fly, and headed toward Earth himself to investigate. Passing through the radiation around Earth messed with Shockwave's navigational systems, which is why he ended up so far away from the Ark in Oregon. Megatron mentions that the Dinobots were then dispatched by the Ark to investigate the Decepticon signal the Ark had picked up from Shockwave in the Savage Lands/Antarctic. But he's only just heard the name Dinobots from Ratchet literally just now. He seems to know all about them instantly, but let's just go with that he was able to piece everything together just from hearing the name. He does mention that Shockwave wouldn't tell him what the Dinobots did to him to defeat him, so there's a hint there that we might get to see that fight at some point in a flashback. And I really hope we do, I want to see that. Megatron orders Ratchet to tell him what the Dinobots did, but of course Ratchet has no idea, so instead he just buys himself some time by proposing a deal. He says Megatron will never know if he kills him now, and so his only choice is to spare him, return the Ark and the Autobots to Ratchet, and in exchange, Ratchet will destroy Shockwave. Megatron reacts perfectly. He's pissed that Ratchet insinuates that he can succeed where Megatron didn't. And fair enough, Ratchet just demonstrated how totally shit he is in a fight. But Megatron sees the benefit. Maybe Ratchet can do it, or maybe he'll get himself killed, which works out fine for Megatron anyway. Or maybe he'll try and double-cross Megatron, in which case Megatron knows he can easily kill him. So there's really no downside to letting Ratchet try his plan, at least from Megatron's perspective. Ratchet lays out his terms. Once Megatron gets proof that Shockwave is dealt with, they will meet on a mountain, away from the Ark, and then Ratchet will return to the Ark on his own, and Megatron leaves them alone. Megatron expresses his doubts that it's going to work out that way, but he agrees to the deal. And now, some contrived stuff to make the story work, really. In the early Doctor Strange comics, the only thing that kept Dormammu from taking over the Earth is that he promised Doctor Strange that he wouldn't do it, and he doesn't want to break that promise. I mean, it's so flimsy as a reason not to do something he could so easily do, right? It's really all just so the story can continue, and to answer the question, why doesn't Dormammu just? And that's the same nonsense that we get here, really. I'd be willing to bet that this ritual never happens again, but for now, it's what's holding both sides to this agreement. They get this, magic 8-ball with the window busted out, and mix, quote, a portion of our most precious bodily substance, which I don't like at all. There are so many other ways that could have been phrased. Why the hell they went with that one, I cannot tell you, but it's almost like they wanted it to sound like what it sounds like. Horrible. So they both make a deposit in the green thing, and Megatron says that with this sacrifice, the bond is now sealed. If either of them breaks this bond, according to Cybertronian law, that person's life is forfeit. And the issue closes out with Megatron saying, "Go! Destroy Shockwave and restore my command of the Decepticons. Return here in defeat and join your comrades in their doom. Either way, I win! Ha ha ha!" And Ratchet is clenching his fist there in the foreground, shaking with either fear or rage or both, and there's a green thing around his eyes here. Either he's crying or his eyes are flashing with whatever emotion it is that he's feeling. It's not clear, but whatever it is, Ratchet's looking really cool here again. And that's it. But we get a teaser for the next issue, In Search of the Dinobots, so maybe I'll get my wish and we'll get a Shockwave Dinobot throwdown next issue. So that's all for today's episode. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I love these comics and I love making this silly show, and I love you. If you want to help me out and to support the show, there are a bunch of ways you can do that. If you're watching on YouTube, as I'm sure you already know, giving the video a like, a comment, subscribing to the channel, and sharing the episode are all ways you can help the right people find this nonsense. Podcast listeners, leaving the show a review also helps it to reach new people, and subscribing on your podcast platform of choice also helps podcast services to know that this is a real and ongoing show, so it might recommend it to new listeners too. I'm always looking for guests. You should know the vibe by now. Cheerful, silly, but equally appreciative. You don't need to have any prior podcast experience or to be a Transformers expert. Just read the issue and be ready to have some fun. The next 5 or so issues are all set for guests, but if you want to let me know that you'd like to join me now, that lets me pencil you in for the future. You can DM me on Blue Sky, which is @ClarionComicsJP. You can leave a comment on the YouTube videos, or you can join us on the Discord using this QR code or the link in the episode description to get in contact with me, previous guests, and a few listeners who hang out there too. I hope you'll join me next week for issue 8, Repeat Performance, with a special guest I cannot believe I managed to even get in contact with, let alone have joined me on the show. Until then though, take care, be kind, and do good. Till all are one!